Chapter 467. Until 2 days and a night had passed, on the morning of the third day, as dawn broke and the sky was dimly lit, Jiang Hanqi's consciousness gradually awakened. She felt herself cradled in a familiar warm embrace, and her heart inexplicably settled. Jiang Hanqi's eyes fluttered slightly before gradually opening her beautiful eyes, staring blankly at her husband in front of her. At this moment, her mind was still a bit hazy, as her memories began to resurface. Jiang Hanqi's face turned increasingly red, and she started to feel a bit scared. She shifted slightly, hugging Wang Feng a bit tighter. Looking at Wang Feng, tears welled up in her eyes, making her appear pitiful. Originally, she wouldn't have been able to cry, but thinking that it was her husband who had caused her to be like this, and that he was still sound asleep at this moment, Jiang Hanqi couldn't help but feel a sense of grievance and depression. At that moment, feeling the movement in his arms, Wang Feng gradually woke up, blinking in a daze as he opened his eyes. He immediately saw Jiang Hanqi's tears swirling in her eyes, looking pitiful. "My dear, why you, what's wrong?" Wang Feng was startled awake by Jiang Hanqi's appearance, and hurriedly raised his hand to wipe the tears from the corners of her eyes. Jiang Hanqi, feeling a bit wronged, pressed her cheek against Wang Feng's chest, gently biting her lower lip. "In the next few days, I might." Jiang Hanqi's voice, cold and somewhat muffled, drifted into Wang Feng's ears, leaving him momentarily at a loss for words. "My dear." Wang Feng reached out affectionately to stroke her head, gently calling her with a hint of apology. Jiang Hanqi heard her husband's call and slightly opened her rosy eyes, looking at him with a mix of pain and confusion. "It's okay, I'll take care of you. Meanwhile, I'll go find Ice Fairy to see if there's any way to resolve your problem." Wang Feng gently rubbed Jiang Hanqi's head, speaking in a soft and tender voice. However, Jiang Hanqi shook her head gently, biting her lower lip and looking at Wang Feng with a pitiful expression. "No, there's no need to find her." Jiang Hanqi shook her head twice, then locked eyes with Wang Feng and softly refused. "Why not? The Ice Fairy must have experienced something similar to you. She might have a solution." "No, husband, you're not allowed to mention her again. If you do, I. Why you what?" Wang Feng was genuinely amused by Jiang Hanqi's adorable scene. Such a silly wife was just too cute. Then you can't touch me anymore." Jiang Hanqi paused midway, then thought for a moment before continuing. As she spoke, Jiang Hanqi playfully nudged Wang Feng a few times, seemingly trying to move away from him. But after a while, she barely moved even 3 centimeters, still nestled against Wang Feng. "Oh, all right, I won't mention it. Whatever my dear says goes." Wang Feng couldn't help but chuckle at Jiang Hanqi, quickly hugging her a bit tighter and giving her a way out. Knock, knock, knock. At that moment, a knock sounded from outside the room. Wang Feng and Jiang Hanqi, nestled together intimately, both turned to look at the door. They furrowed their brows, and Wang Feng gently wrapped the blanket around Jiang Hanqi to prevent her from revealing herself. Chapter 468. Who is it? Wang Feng called out to the door while holding the warm Jiang Hanqi in his arms. He remembered that this room was protected by a formation. The person outside fell silent for a moment. Then a cold and indifferent voice came through. "Ice Fairy." As expected, Wang Feng intended to get out of bed to open the door, but he was tightly held back by Jiang Hanqi. "Husband, don't go." Jiang Hanqi tilted her head slightly, her hands tightly wrapped around Wang Feng's waist, looking at him with reluctance. "It's okay, sweetheart. I'm just going to see what she wants." Wang Feng rubbed Jiang Hanqi's head, wrapping the blanket around her a bit tighter, and spoke softly to comfort her. After pondering for a moment, although feeling a bit wronged, Jiang Hanqi gently released her slender arms. "Hurry up." Jiang Hanqi peered out from the blanket, exposing half her face as she watched Wang Feng get out of bed, putting on his big floral shorts and maple red shirt to go open the door. Creak. As the door opened, Wang Feng looked up and saw the Ice Fairy holding a package wrapped in fairy paper. "Mother, what is wrong?" Although Jiang Hanqi didn't like the Ice Fairy, Wang Feng felt that respect for elders should not be disregarded. He couldn't just ignore her forever. Chapter 469. Whoosh. A rush of wind sounded, and dust was sent flying at high speed. Su Chun quickly picked up the limp Han Miao with one hand. So soft and comfortable. Su Chun felt the warmth in his embrace, and the body much shorter than his own made his heart flutter. "Little dragon, where have you been?" "Dad is looking for you." "Dad?" At that moment, a voice echoed in Little Dragon's mind, causing him to momentarily freeze, then hurriedly jump down from Han Yao's embrace. "Sister, Dad is looking for you." Little Dragon looked at the ice Qilin that had run up to him, picked up the small wooden sword sent by cold, condensed moon lying on the ground, and climbed onto its back. Little Dragon raised the wooden sword and pointed it at the icy white fur on the ice Qilin's back, directing the tip towards Wang Feng's location. Oh! The ice Qilin let out a howl, rearing up like a battle horse, then thundered down with a crash, charging out. Ha ha ha! As Little Dragon's joyful laughter faded into the distance, only Su Chun, still holding Han Miao, remained in place. Chapter 470 Ding. Task: to capture the extreme Ice Empress Jiang Hanqi. Task completed. Reward: invincibility. Already granted. Just as Wang Feng closed the door and prepared to boil medicine, he was taken aback for a moment, and countless question marks appeared in his mind. But before he could react, the void above was suddenly torn apart, and a massive beam of light roared into the immortal realm. The entire immortal realm changed color, and all the races within were incomparably shocked, not knowing what was happening. Boom! 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 Inside the Dao Tian immortal manor, Wang Feng's realm visibly broke through, but the system had already shielded him from the aftermath of the breakthrough. Otherwise, when Wang Feng surpassed the immortal emperor's realm, he would likely crush everyone in the entire Dao Tian immortal manor. Pop! 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 Wang Feng felt as if something inside him had shattered. At the same time, the chaotic essence within him began to condense a second, third, fourth, up to the ninth essence, finally merging all together. 9-1. Pop! 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 Immortal Emperor Realm. Immortal Sovereign Realm. Immortal Emperor Realm. In the blink of an eye, Wang Feng's realm soared upwards like a train, rapidly increasing. Chapter 471. Wang Feng held a bowl of soup medicine in one hand, while with the other hand, he waved casually, and the door of the room slammed shut. Finally, with a glance, a chair not far away slowly flew in front of him. Wang Feng reached out to take the chair, steadily holding the soup medicine with one hand as he slowly sat down. My dear, are you ready? Wang Feng asked gently, looking at Jiang Hanqi, who was blushing and sitting in the tub. Jiang Hanqi nodded slightly, her face a bit red, her voice barely audible. Drink this. It should hurt less afterward, Wang Feng said, holding the clear soup medicine with one hand and gently stroking Jiang Hanqi's damp little head with the other. Jiang Hanqi sat in the tub, hugging her knees, her eyes sparkling as if they contained light, feeling extremely shy and slightly turning her head away, unable to look directly at Wang Feng. No, don't look, Jiang Hanqi said softly, feeling Wang Feng's naked gaze on her, slowly lowering her eyes, her expression shy and restless. Why can't I look? Not only do I want to look, but I also want to touch, Wang Feng teased, unable to resist the urge to play with her, pretending to reach out to touch her. Chapter 472. She wanted to have a little baby that belonged to both of them, but she didn't want to go through that strange experience. I want to, Jiang Hanqi hesitated for a moment, bit her lip, and then gently hugged Wang Feng's arm, her voice almost inaudible. Wang Feng had heard that women who experienced such things would undergo a qualitative change afterward, and he wondered if Jiang Hanqi would. Maybe let her adapt a few more times. If he didn't win the lottery himself, he could use the system's guaranteed win reward. The guaranteed win was not something that relied on external forces. It seemed like a mysterious, invisible luck. It could increase the probability of Wang Feng's celestial power leaving his body from 50% to 100% chance of survival, finally reaching Jiang Hanqi's residence. Of course, even if he didn't use it, there was still a chance of winning. It wasn't that they were infertile. But not tonight, I still hurt. Okay, Wang Feng replied gently, stroking her already dried, silky hair with magic. Chapter 473. Accompanied by the figure of Han Miao, who was 1 meter 50 tall and hugging her arms, she slowly entered the courtyard, startling Su Chan into transforming into a sword. At this moment, that cute Han Miao, who was 1 meter 50 tall with ice blue hair and a tuft of silly hair, seemed like a prehistoric ferocious beast. However, for Su Chan at this moment, he would rather face a prehistoric ferocious beast than confront this 1 meter 50 silly-haired little girl. Master, hurry, hurry, hurry. Su Chen's eyes widened in fear, and the dim sword body spun wildly around Wang Feng and Jiang Hanqi. Han Miao, I'll count to 3. You come over by yourself. Or I'll personally come over and shave all your hair off. 3. Han Miao, with her bright tuft of silly hair, angrily shouted from the entrance to the courtyard. Han Miao didn't move towards Wang Feng. She just stood there, raising her fair hand to count. 2. Each of her countdowns was like a death knell, nearly making the transformed Su Chen cry. 1. As she counted to the last number, Han Miao slowly withdrew her fingers and made a fist, her small figure wearing a fierce expression. That cute look, even when angry, had no harm to normal people at all. Chapter 474. Wang Feng began to feel conflicted about whether to release the Star Sword. After all, they were in the wrong. But looking at Han Miao's determined expression to beat Su Chen into a pulp, Wang Feng hesitated. Han Miao, calm down. Can I let Su Chen give you explanation tomorrow? Wang Feng, aware of his guilt, lowered his tone and responded somewhat reluctantly. Don't call me San Shui. My name is Han Miao. Han Mi. Han Mi. If you call me San Shui again, I'll tear your mouth. Oomph. With her face tilted up, looking at Wang Feng and Zhang Hanshi, Han Miao, with her silly hair, placed her hands on her hips and angrily corrected her name. And, I don't care. I want to come out right now. Otherwise, I'll. Han Miao raised her little hand as if to hit Wang Feng's thigh, but was shot down by a cold glare, her words getting stuck. Oomph. With her silly hair, Han Miao huffed in defiance, but her body honestly slowly withdrew her hand. Chapter 475. At this moment, Zhang Hanshi, who was in Wang Feng's arms, also raised her gaze to the golden glowing sky, her delicate brows slightly furrowing. Zhang Hanshi had long noticed this anomaly, and naturally knew that it was due to a being powerful enough to break through the restrictions of the celestial realm. However, that being was probably already targeted by others from different planes, and it might even implicate the celestial realm. Before Zhang Hanshi married Wang Feng, she had studied a great deal of knowledge due to her unfamiliarity with the celestial realm's map distribution. Now, gazing at the golden light of the Tao in the sky, it was one of the pieces of knowledge she had learned. The strong golden light of the Tao illuminated the entire celestial realm, transforming the previously inconspicuous celestial realm into a golden entity. Every few million years, there could be a being breaking through the celestial realm's limitations to become the strongest in the celestial realm. If no being had broken through the celestial realm's boundaries for tens of millions of years, it would be as if none existed. However, none of this was the main point. The key was that each time the golden light of the Tao appeared, the celestial realm would be targeted by beings from other planes. This time, with the celestial realm illuminated into gold by the golden light of the Tao, it was likely that a great chaos would occur again. Chapter 476. As Wang Feng and Zhang Hanshi slowly stepped down, Wang Feng quietly sensed everything around him. In just a moment, he felt a completely ice-sealed secret room. As Wang Feng silently extended his divine sense, the figure of a middle-aged man imprisoned by ice chains appeared before his eyes. However, that middle-aged man exuded a strange aura, and his skin seemed to have black threads wriggling. Beside the locked middle-aged man, there was also an old turtle, 1 person tall, emanating mysterious light with its eyes closed, seemingly asleep. At this moment, a cold figure slowly appeared beside the handsome yet eerie middle-aged man through some unknown means. That figure was none other than the Ice Immortal. After the Ice Immortal appeared, she stood in front of the figure locked by ice chains, her eye sockets gradually turning red, seemingly very heartbroken. The Ice Fairy stretched out her long palm, gently caressing the handsome face of the man bound by ice chains, and cried out in pain. Wang Feng, witnessing the scene, couldn't help but tremble in his heart, and even the movement of his body being pulled by Zhang Hanshi paused for a moment. Chapter 477. Husband Zhang Hanshi lowered her eyes slightly, her head gently rubbing against Wang Feng's chest, her delicate arms tightly hugging his waist, constantly murmuring. Perhaps the only person who could give Zhang Hanshi a sense of security in this life was Wang Feng alone. Husband is here, my dear. Sleep now. Just sleep for a while. Wang Feng gently patted Zhang Hanshi's back, softly coaxing her like a baby to calm her down. When in doubt, sleep it off. While softly patting the gradually calming Zhang Hanshi, Wang Feng was preparing to open and check the system panel. As time passed, the golden light in the sky had faded, and his realm had gradually stopped breaking through. Or rather, it had already reached a limit. Wang Feng's realm. Husband, you. Just as Wang Feng was about to check the panel and see his current realm, Zhang Hanshi's voice rang out again. It's okay. Husband won't leave, be good. Wang Feng slightly lowered his gaze to look at Zhang Hanshi again, gently patting her back to soothe her emotions as before. However, he couldn't shake the feeling that Zhang Hanshi seemed a bit strange at that moment. My dear, why is your face so red? Wang Feng looked at Jiang Hanqi, whose face was blushing with shyness, and felt a bit puzzled. Could it be that she turned red because of what just happened? Just as Wang Feng was wondering, the next moment, Jiang Hanqi's somewhat shy voice rang out again. Husband. At that moment, Jiang Hanqi's tender and beautiful eyes slightly gazed up at Wang Feng, who was so close. Although Wang Feng was somewhat mentally prepared, he was still slightly stunned when he heard Jiang Hanqi say this. Then Wang Feng intended to move, but the next moment, an invisible, powerful force pressed down on his body. You can't move, Jiang Hanqi said anxiously and a bit urgently. Wang Feng felt a binding that he could easily break free from with his current realm, but he didn't do so. My dear you, Wang Feng was a bit confused, pondering in his heart. What did Jiang Hanqi want to do? After thinking for a moment, suddenly a flash of insight struck him. Oh no, I've fallen for a trick again. Wang Feng seemed to have guessed what Jiang Hanqi was planning. What a scheming wife. But, well, I like it, he wanted to see what this silly wife would do. A moment later, Jiang Hanqi, with her face flushed, suddenly fell silent. What are you staring at? Jiang Hanqi looked at Wang Feng, and at this point, she became a bit scared and uneasy, nervously stuttering. Wang Feng looked at Jiang Hanqi's hesitant appearance and slightly furrowed his brows. Jiang Hanqi, with her eyes full of shame, finally bit her lips slightly. Just as Wang Feng was shocked, she gently leaned in, and then there was no more. Wang Feng. No, my expectations were all built up, and you tell me it's over before it even started? Wang Feng felt somewhat frustrated. Why did Jiang Hanqi seem so dazed at this moment? Seeing Wang Feng looking confused and a bit dissatisfied, Jiang Hanqi gradually bit her lip tighter, hesitated for a while, and then made up her mind. Because of the fear of an unnamed powerful force, the scene suddenly went black. Time passed, and gradually it was the next day. Reviewer, please, just let me through. I basically found everything from chapters 1 to 500. Chapter 478, Celestial Realm Noon. The sunlight slightly penetrated through the window, illuminating the dim room, making it much brighter. Wang Feng was now looking with a melancholic expression at Jiang Hanqi, who was nestled in his arms, sleeping soundly. At this moment, Jiang Hanqi had a sweet smile on her lips, but her delicate brows were slightly furrowed in pain. That damn wife. Wang Feng cursed inwardly. Forget it. Let me check my realm first. Since Jiang Hanqi had not yet woken up, Wang Feng simply opened the system panel to take a look. Wang Feng's realm. Cultivation method. Chaos Overlord body technique abilities. Sword intent, weapon transformation, strength, healing, speed, golden body, god striking, concealment, possession, shape-shifting, breathing, death breathing items. Jiang Hanqi's little clay figurine, top-grade immortal weapon, celestial sword. Jiang Hanqi's white straps, strange beds, x 3 origin points, 188 billion overall evaluation. Kid, you are invincible. Wang Feng looked at the semi-familiar and semi-strange words on the system panel, pondering in his heart. System, where the hell is my realm? Wang Feng thought for a long time and finally shouted loudly at the system in his heart. The three were truly confusing him. Chapter 479. Could it be that other abilities are the same? Wang Feng was slightly startled, then took Jiang Hanqi out of the hidden space, gently placing her on the bed. Husband. Seeing this, Jiang Hanqi seemed to want to get up and hug Wang Feng, but was quickly pressed back down by Wang Feng's hand. Be good and lie down properly. Don't move around. Wang Feng covered Jiang Hanqi with a blanket, but seeing her pitiful look staring at him, he finally softened his heart. Wang Feng, who originally wanted to test other abilities, could only crawl into bed to accompany the pitiful-looking Jiang Hanqi at that moment. In bed, Wang Feng held Jiang Hanqi and tried to use the healing ability, preparing to see if he could heal her injuries. However, after a while, Wang Feng gradually furrowed his brows. Wasn't he had said that it would be used to perfection? Why was there no response? Wang Feng was somewhat puzzled, but didn't he worry too much, as he could still make herbal soup for her to drink. Could it be that this is the concept of the daughter of the great Tao's pain, only able to rely on her own recovery or those immortal medicines to recover? Then everything made sense. After all, as the daughter of the great Tao, she should never have broken her body in her lifetime, yet she happened to encounter Wang Feng. Chapter 480. Finally, in a realm similar to the middle lower tier in Wang Feng's heart, he found a black jade plate and compared it. Not bad. It's slightly stronger than this black jade plate. It seems this crescent necklace is not simple. I'll check the strength of the underworld later. Wang Feng was pondering while comparing the strengths of the two treasures. He didn't have the coordinates of the underworld right now, so he didn't know how strong the power level of that realm was. After comparing the two treasures, Wang Feng's consciousness swiftly returned to his soul. Everything just now felt as if time had stopped and less than a second had passed. Wang Feng raised the necklace, as if intending to put it on himself in Jiang Hanqi's slightly beautiful eyes. However, in the next moment, Wang Feng stood up and extended the necklace towards Jiang Hanqi's fair neck, gently putting it on her. Husband? Jiang Hanqi called out in confusion after a moment, seemingly not expecting Wang Feng to suddenly put it on her. My dear, your husband is already invincible. It doesn't matter whether this necklace exists or not. After putting the necklace on Jiang Hanqi, Wang Feng gently patted her little head twice and spoke softly. Chapter 481. Wang Feng looked at the black silk that was so close in front of him, his eyes filled with some ambiguous meaning as he glanced at Jiang Hanqi, who was holding the black silk with one hand. Then, Wang Feng cautiously reached out his hand, slowly moving towards it. However, the movement was very slow, and his gaze kept watching Jiang Hanqi, seemingly observing her reaction. Seeing her husband being so cautious, Jiang Hanqi couldn't help but slightly furrow her beautiful brows, feeling a bit helpless inside. After a few seconds, Jiang Hanqi looked at her husband, who was still staring at her, feeling somewhat puzzled. Helplessly, she tried to retract her hand, and as she did, a whoosh of wind suddenly sounded. Jiang Hanqi hadn't intended to retract her hand, but Wang Feng's speed in snatching the silk made her momentarily stunned. I got it. Wang Feng held up the long black silk in his hand, happily shaking it in front of Jiang Hanqi. Never mind as long as you're happy, husband. But you look quite cute like this. Jiang Hanqi looked at Wang Feng, seemingly wanting to say something, but when she saw his expression, she felt inexplicably joyful. Chapter 482. It's all because her husband tied that red string on her, causing her to become that way during the day's period where she would say everything in her heart whenever her husband asked anything, unable to resist. Although she was very willing deep down, how could she say such things out loud? Husband, let's go. Jiang Hanqi gently held Wang Feng's hand that was rubbing her head. Then her expression gradually softened a lot as she spoke. Wang Feng didn't say much, just silently replied with an knowing that Jiang Hanqi should be going to find the ice fairy in the underworld now. Can your body handle it now? Wang Feng suddenly thought of something and looked at Jiang Hanqi, speaking lightly. At this, Jiang Hanqi's expression, which had just calmed down, changed a bit. You don't need to worry. I know myself. As soon as Jiang Hanqi mentioned this, she couldn't help but think of the scenes where Wang Feng forcibly fed her soup and medicine, causing her to stammer as she spoke. Then if it hurts, you must tell your husband, okay? Jiang Hanqi bit her lip, forcing herself to suppress the burning sensation on her face. But the part she was most likely to overlook, her ears, were still bright red. Chapter 483. The place where souls return in the vast world, the underworld. Wang Feng and Jiang Hanqi walked straight through the dark passage leading to the underworld until the scene before them began to slowly change. Originally a dark and eerie passage, many withered flowers and plants gradually appeared. As the two entered the land of the underworld, the dark passage behind them began to slowly close. Wang Feng and Jiang Hanqi simultaneously raised their eyes, silently observing the desolation and the overgrown black weeds around them. Why is the sky in the underworld green? Wang Feng frowned, looking at the eerie green sky with a hint of confusion, realizing there was not a trace of sunlight around. Jiang Hanqi seemed to be observing as well, and suddenly her eyes trembled slightly, as if she had seen something astonishing. Wang Feng noticed Jiang Hanqi's abnormality and unconsciously followed her gaze to investigate. Goodness, what is that? Wang Feng looked at a soul shadow flying out unconsciously from the eerie green sky, slowly heading in one direction. Wang Feng sensed that this soul shadow seemed to be flying in from outside the underworld, clearly not a local soul. Chapter 484. Is there such a world? Wang Feng sensed the highest-ranking ghostly being in the underworld and found that its realm could be considered strong even in the entire vast world. However, Wang Feng also sensed some weaker souls, and the weakest ones were actually common souls. And this must be the Naiha Bridge and the Wangchuan River, right? And that female ghost who keeps tapping the dead souls' foreheads. Could she be in a position similar to Meng Po's? Wang Feng's consciousness overlooked a desolate area in the underworld, where countless dead souls were gathered. Not only humans, but also many strange dead beings, each with different expressions on their faces. Not far from the countless dead souls was a deep, black flowing spring, above which was a long bridge leading to an unknown destination. At the beginning of the long bridge, there was a female ghost who could be considered good-looking, gently tapping the foreheads of each soul crossing the bridge. This familiar appearance, this familiar process. However, unlike the legends from Blue Star, there was no ghost gate, nor was there a Yellow Springs road. What lay before them was only a vast wasteland, completely devoid of grass or trees. Chapter 485. Oh no. Is this a conference for the old, weak, sick, and disabled? Wang Feng held Jiang Hanqi's hand as they slowly walked out of the dilapidated streets of the town, their figures reflecting in the eyes of the ghosts. Yaya, Yaya, they're coming. Among a crowd of ghosts, 4 of them suddenly started their excited chatter again. However, this time no ghost angrily scolded them, and the atmosphere inexplicably fell into silence. Hundreds of incomplete ghosts stood in the town, silently staring at Wang Feng and Jiang Hanqi. Until, what right do you have? What right do you have to hit me? Hit me. Oomph. A little girl's voice rang out, rushing out from a nearby street towards a middle-aged ghost that had just slapped her. Her voice was still sweet and pleasant, and Wang Feng looked at the figure that was about the same height as Little Long, slightly furrowing his brows. This little girl, ghost, actually had no missing parts. Apart from her pale complexion, everything else seemed normal. As the little girl angrily rushed in front of the middle-aged ghost, she opened her mouth wide and instantly revealed a mouthful of fangs. Abba, I'll bite you to death. Get lost. Chapter 486. Just right. I have a reclining chair in my sea of consciousness, which is particularly sturdy. Then you can sleep first. I'll just keep watch over the surrounding environment. Jiang Hanqi felt inexplicably disappointed when she heard Wang Feng mention the reclining chair. This meant she couldn't hold her husband. But what if she couldn't sleep comfortably? Wang Feng gently rubbed his handsome face against Jiang Hanqi's fair neck, his tone carrying a hint of inexplicable meaning. Jiang Hanqi had a naturally cold disposition, but she could never tolerate her husband's puppy-like way of speaking. She could not remember how long it had been since her husband had acted so spoiled towards her. It seemed to have stopped since they entered the celestial realm. Then you sleep with me, right? Just hold me while you sleep, Jiang Hanqi said, extending her left hand, adorned with an ice crystal flower ring, to embrace Wang Feng's head as he nuzzled against her. In her confusion, she even misspoke. However, Jiang Hanqi was not entirely foolish. Deep down, she had already vaguely guessed that her husband wanted to hold her while sleeping. Okay, Wang Feng lifted his head, cupping Jiang Hanqi's face, and gently pecked her rosy lips. He then pulled out a large recliner and placed it on the ground, gesturing for Jiang Hanqi to lie down. Chapter 487. After living in the underworld for so long, do you know about something called the Abyssal Springs Deceptive Heart? Wang Feng suddenly recalled the purpose of this underworld and wondered if Qin Yushi, having survived for so long, knew about the Abyssal Springs Deceptive Heart. Upon hearing this, Qin Yushi's unique dual-colored eyes trembled slightly. She first glanced at Wang Feng and then at Jiang Hanqi. I know, and I also know where it is located. After a moment of silence, Qin Yushi finally responded, though it seemed she had hesitated earlier. Where? Wang Feng asked eagerly, his eyes fixed on her. As long as he knew where it was, he could handle the rest. Although he had invincible cultivation, the underworld was vast, and he could not possibly check every treasure in detail. I can tell you, but I have a condition. Is that okay? Qin Yushi's dirty, yet unmistakably beautiful face showed a hint of embarrassment. After all, Wang Feng had saved her, and she was still in this state. But she truly had no other choice. It had been 1,000 years, and it was a knot in her heart. She vowed to rescue that ghost. However, Qin Yushi still thought that even if Wang Feng refused to help her, she would still inform him of their whereabouts. Chapter 488. How did you just slap that ghost to death? At this moment, Jiang Hanqi, flying high in the sky, looked at Wang Feng, recalling the earlier scene with some astonishment. My dear, you just need to know that your husband's strength is unclear. He grows stronger when faced with strong opponents. Wang Feng said playfully, leaning closer to Jiang Hanqi's face, his expression somewhat unserious. Jiang Hanqi felt the warmth of his skin lightly touching her face and fell silent, as if lost in thought. At this moment, she began to vaguely believe Wang Feng's words. However, it was still a bit unbelievable that her husband dared to claim he was invincible. The two quickly traversed the void, with Wang Feng intentionally pulling Jiang Hanqi towards the Long Bridge and the Black River. Wang Feng believed this must be the Black Underworld River that Qin Yushi spoke of, and the abyssal spring's deceptive heart was inside it. Finally, after some time traveling, a wave appeared in the void above the Black Underworld River. In an instant, all the wandering souls around looked up, and the female ghost at the bridge, who had been tapping the souls on their foreheads, gradually stopped her actions. Chapter 489. Since entering the celestial realm, her husband had never left her side for more than 3 days. How could he have raised his realm to the point of easily crushing powerful beings in the underworld? Although Jiang Hanqi was somewhat naive when it came to romantic matters, it didn't mean she was foolish about everything else. In fact, she could be incredibly smart, with a hint of grievance and blame in her tone. She couldn't help but make Wang Feng's heart skip a beat. The matter concerning the system was the only thing he had concealed from Jiang Hanqi, as it was his biggest secret. At that moment, Wang Feng looked at the downcast Jiang Hanqi and couldn't help but hesitate deeply. He was uncertain whether he should reveal the source of his invincible strength and the truth about the system to Jiang Hanqi. System, do you think I should tell my wife about you? Wang Feng asked the system in his mind as it was about it, and it would be better for it to make the decision. Ding, it doesn't matter to me. After all, there's nothing threatening you at the moment. The system's somewhat indifferent voice echoed in Wang Feng's mind, showing it was not overly concerned about the matter. If her husband didn't want to say it, then so be it. Jiang Hanqi noticed Wang Feng's hesitant expression and understood in her heart. After all, everyone had their secrets, right? Chapter 490. Jiang Hanqi slightly pursed her lips, her expression as cold and beautiful as usual, her pretty face showing little emotion. But deep down, no one knew if her feelings were as she outwardly displayed. After all, it was acceptable for such a powerful lord of the underworld to look like a child. At this moment, Wang Feng had also enacted a fatherly style of education. Are you behaving now? Wang Feng restrained the little lord of the underworld, who was desperately trying to break free, forcing it to stay pinned at his waist, unable to move. You think you can? This lord of the underworld is dead. I will never submit. The childlike lord of the underworld glared with scarlet eyes, holding back the fiery pain from the chaotic celestial energy on its backside, shouting loudly. This was the only way it could maintain face in front of the many souls in the underworld. The thought of the rumors that would spread throughout the vast world about it being spanked by humans made the lord of the underworld take a deep breath. Closing its ruby-like eyes in despair, its face ashen. Smack, smack, smack. It hurts, it hurts, it hurts. This lord of the underworld will behave. Stop hitting me. Under the relentless slaps from Wang Feng, which had increased in intensity, the pain magnified many times over. Chapter 491. Not long after, boom. After a brief period of calm, an extremely powerful level 8 gale suddenly swept across the entire underworld. It even affected the outer starry sky. Countless things in the underworld were swept up, and dust filled the air. This one slap made the already dark green environment of the underworld appear as if it were the apocalypse under this powerful aftershock. However, Wang Feng's target was not the underworld, but rather the immensely large golden-eyed heavenly king outside the underworld's starry sky. Whoosh! A strong wind sound that resonated throughout the underworld, and even the entire starry sky suddenly erupted. The chaotic palm print, like a beam of light, instantly reached beyond the starry sky. Carrying an extreme madness, the chaotic palm print smashed towards Wang Feng and Jiang Hanqi's consciousness, charging fiercely towards the golden-eyed heavenly king's chest without reducing its speed or power. At this moment, the towering heavenly king, standing at millions of feet tall, gazed sternly at the entire underworld from beyond the starry sky. However, if one looks closely into his pupils, one can see that they are filled with countless expressions of terror. Chapter 492. Do you think you can defeat me? Wang Feng's eyes narrowed, and in an instant, he locked onto the so-called position of the Great Universe Manager. It was a small ball of light, without form, sound, or emotion. But it was not the mechanical voice of the system. It was unclear and indistinct. So what if I can't defeat you? The Great Universe Manager sensed that Wang Feng had already locked onto its position, yet remained calm and admitted it generously. Since even you can't defeat me, why should I hold back? Wang Feng's spiritual sense firmly locked onto the position of the Great Universe Manager, his tone flat, with a hint of "Are you stupid?" If the great Tao hadn't disappeared without a trace, how could the great universe allow you to be so brazen? Although the great universe manager was locked onto by Wang Feng's spiritual sense, its mouth remained as tough as ever. Oh, upon hearing the words of the great universe manager, Wang Feng suddenly fell silent, not knowing why he uttered an "oh." If the great Tao had vanished, then where did the system steal the power of the great Tao from? System, you didn't bind the great Tao, did you? Just like how you 3,000 systems extracted the essence blood of Pangu? At this moment, Wang Feng seemed to have thought of something and asked the system in his heart as if he had suddenly realized it. Chapter 493. Within the boundary wrapped in chaotic immortal power. At this moment, Jiang Hanshi was quietly sitting on the chair that Wang Feng had taken out, her beautiful eyes quietly looking at the person in front of her. As for the mysterious heart of the abyss just now, Wang Feng had already made Jiang Hanshi put it away in the divine sea space beforehand. Now, the two were sitting face to face, staring at each other, and the atmosphere became a bit heavy for a while. Finally, Wang Feng couldn't help but break the strange atmosphere. "My dear, this is a long story. There is something special in my mind." Wang Feng also sat on a chair, pointing to his head while speaking directly opposite Jiang Hanshi. "Something special?" Jiang Hanshi slightly furrowed her beautiful brows, looking at Wang Feng with a hint of doubt in her eyes, while her heart felt inexplicably uneasy. "Yes, it is something we call a system." After Wang Feng finished speaking, he sensed Jiang Hanshi's emotional changes, wanting to see how she would react. He remembered that Jiang Hanshi knew about such things as systems because she had once killed a system owner. Aside from him being killed 8 times, there should be something else. Chapter 494. Husband, can you just tell me? Jiang Hanshi gently rubbed her face against Wang Feng's ear, her cold voice turning soft and melodious. Jiang Hanshi was acting coy. Wang Feng felt himself softening at her calling him husband, and after thinking for a moment, he made up his mind. "Actually, this cultivation level was given to you by me." After Wang Feng said this, Jiang Hanshi's action of rubbing her neck against him paused slightly, as if she was a bit confused. "In fact, you had the luck of the great Tao on you, and you should have never been broken in your lifetime. But you met me, I became your husband, and in the end, I broke you. And the system on me sensed the opportunity and helped me obtain the power of the great Tao." Wang Feng spoke very euphemistically, trying to avoid directly stating that he gained this power because he had been with her. Upon hearing this, Jiang Hanshi seemed to be stunned, gently hugging Wang Feng and remaining silent for a long time. But everything Wang Feng said was true. He just expressed it in a different way. Otherwise, he was really afraid Jiang Hanshi would get angry. At this moment, Wang Feng did not know whether Jiang Hanshi, who was frozen in his embrace, was sulking. For a moment, his heart was also uncertain. Chapter 495. Inside the chaotic boundary. Wang Feng and the already somewhat soft Jiang Hanshi slowly separated, both of their faces slightly flushed. "Now that you know everything you want to know, husband guarantees that there are no secrets hidden from you, my dear." Wang Feng gently held Jiang Hanshi's exquisite little face, unable to resist squeezing it with one hand. Jiang Hanshi's already crystal-clear red lips puffed up due to the previous kiss, giving her a cute yet aloof appearance. Jiang Hanshi symbolically shook her head gently, trying to break free from Wang Feng's hand that was holding her face. This adorable look was something she only displayed when facing Wang Feng. "Ha!" Wang Feng looked at her beautiful figure with her long hair slightly swaying and her lips puffed out adorably, unable to resist leaning in for another kiss. After teasing Jiang Hanshi for a while and realizing she seemed to be genuinely upset, Wang Feng finally let her go. "Let's go, princess, please get on." Wang Feng stood up, walked in front of Jiang Hanshi, slightly squatted down, and spoke as usual. Jiang Hanshi stared blankly at Wang Feng's back for a moment, and the last bit of her frustration dissipated. Chapter 496. Rest assured, I know what I'm doing. Wang Feng waved his hand softly while carrying Jiang Hanshi's true form on his back. This also proved that even though his spiritual sense had probed out, his true consciousness was still present. Buzz, buzz, buzz. As Wang Feng's spiritual sense forcefully intruded, the rebirth gate suddenly trembled violently. "If you shake again, I'll take those 2 broken doors of yours and throw them into the dung pit, then bring them back to reinstall them. Do you believe it?" As soon as Wang Feng said this, the rebirth gate miraculously began to calm down and stopped shaking, obediently quieting down. Seeing this, Wang Feng's spiritual sense forcefully charged in. As Wang Feng's spiritual sense entered the rebirth gate, the surrounding scene suddenly changed. Wang Feng felt that the once dark rebirth gate suddenly lit up, and the sound of car horns blaring angrily echoed around him. Standing in the middle of the road, thinking of dying, just as Wang Feng was lost in thought, an angry shout entered his ears. The Wang Feng, shaped by spiritual sense, stood on the road and slowly raised his head to look around. This place is. Wang Feng kept surveying the environment around him, and a feeling of familiarity gradually emerged. Beep, beep, beep. Chapter 497, Clap. As Wang Feng's spiritual sense exited, the rebirth gate suddenly made a loud clap as it slammed shut. Even when Jiang Hanshi looked toward the rebirth gate, she could see the two doors that had closed with a bang were still shaking violently. It was evident that the rebirth gate was very angry about Wang Feng's earlier threat after confirming its safety. Oh dear, it's angry. Seeing this, Wang Feng, dragging the dark little tower with his spiritual sense, was about to turn around, intentionally releasing a bit of his imposing manner. The rebirth gate sensed the pressure released by Wang Feng and immediately stopped shaking, quickly quieting down. At this moment, it resembled a small child who had been bullied, feeling pitiful and helpless. Wang Feng saw this and no longer held it against him. After all, he himself was not in the right. However, in the world of cultivation, strength is paramount. Without power, he would have been killed long ago, just like when he faced Feng Tian last time. Immediately, Wang Feng's consciousness supported the black tower with the illusionary sky spirit, flying over the rebirth bridge, returning to his own body. The black tower gradually descended from air into Wang Feng's hand, gently cradled by his palm. Chapter 498. Let's go. Wang Feng shouted, then reached out with a hand, instantly pulling the little underworld master from a distance. Slap! A crisp sound echoed, and then Wang Feng, Jiang Hanshi, along with 3 souls and a black tower, suddenly vanished. The little underworld master also fell hard to the ground, covering his rear with his right hand, his face filled with pain. His mouth kept moving, mumbling, showing how foul-mouthed he was feeling. That thing actually had to slap him on the backside before leaving, really disgraceful. The little underworld master cursed Wang Feng in his heart, venting his displeasure. The rebirth granny, seeing the little underworld master's adorable blunder, almost couldn't help but laugh. Are you laughing? The little underworld master, rubbing his sore backside, slowly stood up, frowning with a resentful look at the rebirth granny. No, how could I? A rebirth granny who is emotionless and professionally trained, possibly laugh? The rebirth granny suppressed her laughter, hurriedly explaining as she looked at the underworld master's fierce expression. It's fine. Go ahead and laugh. I won't blame you. Chapter 499. Crack, crack, crack. As the heavy ice-walled door in the ice abyss slowly opened, it emitted a thick, harsh sound as it scraped against the ice surface. Wang Feng and Jiang Hanshi, hand in hand, gradually appeared outside the ice-walled door, their eyes fixed inside. The ice fairy and old Xian turtle had long been waiting inside the ice chamber, both showing a hint of joy. It was unclear whether they were happy that Jiang Hanshi had returned safely, or that she had brought back the abyssal mysterious heart safely. Xiaoya? You don't need to call me that. Just call me Hanshi. Jiang Hanshi's cold expression showed no change as she interrupted the ice fairy's words. She then walked into the ice chamber with Wang Feng. This is the abyssal mysterious heart you wanted. After saying this, Jiang Hanshi raised the black box containing the abyssal mysterious heart and gently placed it on the nearby ice table. I've returned the favor, and from now on, you and I have no ties. Jiang Hanshi's cold gaze looked at the ice fairy, her stunning expression very calm, as her red lips moved to utter a chilling statement. Hearing Jiang Hanshi's words, the ice fairy, who had always been expressionless, finally showed a change, gradually becoming stiff. Chapter 500. It's over. Ha ha ha. Wang Feng looked at Lu Qingyao gradually collapsing to the ground, instantly amused and laughed heartily, until a cold gaze turned towards him. Wang Feng was startled. He hadn't forgotten what he had just said about Jiang Hanshi being a heart-enticing female ghost. Sure enough, Wang Feng raised his eyes and met Jiang Hanshi's displeased gaze as she frowned. Ahem, my wife is definitely not a female ghost, but she is indeed heart-enticing, because her husband's heart had already been completely enchanted by her, leaving no room for anything else. Seeing this, Wang Feng hurriedly ran to Jiang Hanshi's side and gently hugged her arm, his survival instinct kicking in. Jiang Hanshi, who had been feeling increasingly frustrated, was momentarily taken aback by Wang Feng's actions. For a moment, she didn't know whether to be angry or not. Mua, if I give you a kiss, you won't be angry anymore. Wang Feng quickly leaned forward and pecked Jiang Hanshi, smiling as he said. A faint blush appeared on Jiang Hanshi's pretty face, and she pressed her lips together that had just been kissed, not saying anything more. What are you two doing? Chapter 501. Every being in the myriad worlds has its own experiences, but how they live has nothing to do with Wang Feng and Jiang Hanshi. Dao Tian Immortal Palace. Wang Feng lay on a recliner, looking at the now dark sky filled with stars, feeling a sense of inexplicable melancholy. Life always has regrets, just like the little girl he saw in his 9th life, swinging with the willow spirit. And many more figures lingered in Wang Feng's mind. But he could never see them again. Husband, let's leave Dao Tian Immortal Palace tomorrow. At this moment, Jiang Hanshi walked over from the side, sitting in the chair next to Wang Feng and speaking softly. Where shall we go? Wang Feng, staring at the starry sky, instinctively asked this question. 2. Jiang Hanshi was momentarily speechless, gazing at Wang Feng's handsome profile, lost in thought for a long time. Leaving Dao Tian Immortal Palace, they had many places to go, yet none felt like home. While Jiang Hanshi was in a daze, Wang Feng slowly sat up from the recliner and took out some firewood from his storage space. As a campfire erupted with blazing flames, both Wang Feng and Jiang Hanshi felt a sense of peace. Chapter 502. Thinking of this, Su Chan was somewhat confused, but still restrained the urge to get up and continued to lie on the ground. After all, the master was always trustworthy. After a while, Su Chan scratched his rear in the darkness and finally couldn't hold back anymore, gradually lifting his head. As Su Chan slowly raised his head, he was met with a pair of small feet clad in ice silk. Following, there was a silk-like ice blue skirt, and then a pair of furious eyes. Han meow. Su Chan practically sprang up from the ground, scared and leaping back 3 zhong. Color sword, color sword, color sword. So colorful and shameless. Han meow, hands on her hips, glared at Su Chan, scolding him word by word. Her small figure, all puffed up with anger, and the tuft of hair on her head made her look adorably cute. At this moment, Su Chan, seeing Han Miao, who was almost spewing flames in anger, didn't dare to move at all because he couldn't outrun her. In his fear, Su Chan could only call out to Wang Feng in his heart, hoping for some response. Master, help! Su Chan shouted in his heart, trembling, but after a second, he found no response. Chapter 503. P.S. I found that leaving some plot holes unfilled makes the readers uncomfortable, so I will transition for 3 chapters, then fill in a few small gaps, and then truly begin the fantasy journey to Blue Star. Just a heads up, if you don't like the later side story about Blue Star, please don't throw stones at me. Thank you, thank you. The next morning, as dawn broke, Wang Feng slowly opened his eyes in the bedding, still somewhat dazed. He looked down at Jiang Hanshi in his arms, and a sense of bewilderment rose in his heart. System, can you locate the position of Blue Star? Oh well. You personally brought me to the immortal cultivation world. You can't not know, right? Wang Feng couldn't help but say, his tone tinged with a bit of helplessness as he listened to the system's hesitant voice. By the way, what exactly is your purpose in bringing me to the immortal cultivation world? At this moment, Wang Feng wasn't in a hurry for the system to answer. Instead, he started chatting with it in his mind. Ding, the task of courting the daughter of the Tao, Jiang Hanshi, is complete. As for the reason, I won't tell you. Damn, I've been encountering my wife for the past 10 lifetimes. Could it be your doing? Chapter 504. Descending to the lower realm. Wang Feng began to fly towards the location indicated by Lu Qingyao. Finally, he dove into the endless seabed with a splash. After weaving through the dark waters for a while, a green figure, chained to the seabed by a black spirit-binding chain, gradually became visible, roaring madly. Wang Feng and Lu Qingyao quietly watched the malevolent spirit that had been roaring at the seabed for an unknown amount of time. Every time it shouted, the surrounding seawater would surge, creating a vacuum due to the spiritual power. Eventually, the malevolent spirit seemed to tire from shouting and simply lay down, letting the seawater suspended, with a chain tugging at its feet. Hey! Wang Feng used his divine sense to fly silently to its back and called out. Despite the high-pressure seawater separating them, the sound was still remarkably clear. Who? The malevolent spirit was startled and shouted, causing the seawater in front of it to turn into a vacuum, then raised its hand to strike back. It's you, damn it. Wang Feng caught its attack with one hand and shouted with a smile. The malevolent spirit paused slightly, suddenly raised its head. Its eyes lit up in an instant. I can't take it anymore. Hurry, take me away from here. Chapter 505. Ding, the task to help Lu Ling become a demon immortal is complete. 100 million source points have been issued. At this moment, a voice echoed in Wang Feng's mind, bringing him back to his senses. With a thought, Wang Feng withdrew the chaotic immortal power he had in the lower realm and turned his gaze back to Han Miao in the courtyard. Are you there? Looking at the quiet atmosphere in the courtyard, Wang Feng couldn't help but call out to Han Miao. Han Miao, sitting by the extinguished fire, slowly turned her head. Her expression somewhat dazed, as if just waking up. It was quite amusing, her expression of confusion, combined with her height and the silly tuft of hair on her head, made her look like a fool. What is up? Han Miao tilted her head slightly, staring blankly at the two, as if her brain had crashed, responding hesitantly. It's nothing. You can keep daydreaming. Wang Feng gently waved his hand and hurriedly flew towards the little dragon and iced Qilin lying on the ground, picking them up. The little dragon, upon being hugged, let out a confused sound while still half asleep. The untransformed iced Qilin was calmer, just opening its eyes slightly in confusion. Chapter 506, Setting Off. Wang Feng gently embraced Jiang Hanshi, his deep eyes looking at the dark void crack as he shouted loudly. Let's go. Lung Ningyue seemed a bit excited and followed up with a shout as she stepped forward. Woof, woof, woof. Oh, at that moment, several dog barks came from a distance, causing everyone present to turn around. They saw a silly black and white dog with wise eyes rushing towards them. Especially the anxious expression on the dog's face made it seem as if it was afraid of being abandoned. Damn, almost forgot about this silly dog. Wang Feng stared at the dog that skidded to a halt in front of him, momentarily stunned. Mainly, this silly dog had disappeared without a trace since he married Jiang Hanshi. All right, you come along too. Let us go. Wang Feng picked up Jiang Hanshi and hooked his foot around Hadi's neck. Then, with its wide, wise eyes, he tossed it into the void crack. Oh, whoa. Hadi yelped as it was thrown in, and seeing this, Wang Feng didn't linger any longer and entered himself while holding Jiang Hanshi. Lung Ningyue and the others quickly followed, seemingly afraid that the void crack would close. Chapter 507. Hearing this, Wang Feng hurriedly opened the system store, and the first thing he saw was a product page with an item costing 10,000 source points. His gaze continued downward, and when he saw the items below, he was momentarily stunned. The system store displayed. First item, Jiang Hanshi Blue Star Identification Set, price 10,000 source points. Second item, Suwon Blue Star Identification Set, price 10,000 source points. Third item, Hadi Blue Star Pet Identification Set, price 10,000 source points. Fourth item, Lung Ningyue. Ninth item, Random Ability, price 999 source points. 10th item, Panga's Essence Blood, price 999. After looking to the end, Wang Feng gradually became dumbfounded. It's still the system that's thoughtful. You've even prepared documents for that silly dog. But why is this Panga's Essence Blood still here? Wang Feng looked at the first few items in the system store and couldn't help but give the system a thumbs up in his heart. But upon seeing the option for Panga's Essence Blood, he couldn't help but complain loudly. Chapter 508. At night, in a luxurious villa. Wang Feng was enjoying the air conditioning while checking his current panel and some items in the system store. System, are you sure these are things from Blue Star? Looking at the item in the store called Laser Celestial Sword, Wang Feng lay on the bed, slightly shocked as he spoke. Ding. It may not necessarily be something owned by Blue Star, but at least there are such things in this universe. All right, a combination of technology and immortal cultivation. Huh, even a laser celestial sword. Wang Feng couldn't help but laugh in his heart, just from the name of this laser celestial sword. He could almost imagine what it would be like. The picture in the system store only showed a handle, so it indeed seemed to be a retractable laser celestial sword. He wondered who crafted such a thing. After thinking for a while, Wang Feng decided to buy one to try it out. As a man, he found it hard to resist these kinds of things. Wang Feng waved his hand and directly spent 1 million source points to buy one. He wasn't worried about running out of source points. If worst came to worst, he could just go back to the Grand Thousand World to borrow some again. And he found that things in the Blue Star universe were generally cheaper. Chapter 509. Husband, have you discovered anything? At this moment, Jiang Hanqi, being pregnant for the first time, did not realize that the celestial power belonging to Wang Feng in her belly had any issues. Wife, I have a question for you. Wang Feng slowly raised his head, looking at Jiang Hanqi's slightly dazed expression, and spoke seriously. Do you hope for just one little baby? Or would you like two little babies? Wang Feng, with a serious expression, gazed into Jiang Hanqi's eyes, his gentle voice flowing out slowly. At this time, the little baby had not yet formed, and he felt it was still possible to win 100%. Then, there might be a possibility of having a pair of twins or dragon and phoenix twins. Of course, this also needed to be asked based on Jiang Hanqi's opinion. If she wanted just one, they would be fine as it is now. But regardless of which, Wang Feng was very happy because he and Jiang Hanqi would have a baby that truly belonged to them. Husband, why did you suddenly ask this question? Jiang Hanqi lay on the bed, slightly furrowing her brows as she looked at Wang Feng, her words filled with deep confusion. At this moment, Jiang Hanqi vaguely guessed something. That is, there might already be a little baby in her belly. Chapter 510. Looking at his long hair, Wang Feng hesitated for a moment before controlling his chaotic celestial power to flow towards his hair. Finally, under Wang Feng's control, his flowing long hair began to gradually shrink. When he felt it was almost enough, Wang Feng immediately withdrew his celestial power. He then lowered his gaze to Jiang Hanqi, who was lying on the new bed. Sound asleep, he reached out to take the quilt beside him and gently covered her, then slowly walked to the mirror in the bathroom. His still a bit lacking. Wang Feng looked at himself in the mirror. Although he was still handsome, he felt something was still missing. All right, short hair with ancient-style long white clothes doesn't look too good. Wang Feng stood in front of the mirror, frowning as he thought for a while, gradually realizing the problem. He didn't know if it was because he had gotten used to the long hair with long white clothes, or if short hair with long white clothes just didn't look good. It seemed he needed to buy some modern clothes, and it would be nice to buy a few dozen sets for his wife to change into. That way, whether she wanted to wear modern clothes or clothes from the cultivation world, it would all be fine. Wang Feng stood in the brightly lit bathroom, pondering for a while, not forgetting to buy Jiang Hanqi some modern clothes. Chapter 511. I've calmed down, but who told your grandson to come and disturb my granddaughter? The elderly man, known as Crazy Chun, first expressed his frustration at having to calm down, but his next words suddenly became excited. They are mutually affectionate. Mutually affectionate. Do you understand? Mutually affectionate? Then why did my granddaughter come to me to complain that your grandson bullied her? Although both elders were covered in injuries, their verbal insults continued to clash. They even continued to scold each other until they returned to their respective homes. When they got home, they still seemed unsatisfied and took out their phones to continue cursing. At this moment, in the luxurious villa, Jiang Hanqi lay on the bed covered with bedding, her eyes gazing at the brightly lit but empty room, and her expression gradually turned aggrieved. She had thought that when she woke up, she would be holding her warm husband, but unexpectedly, her husband had left her alone in the room. At this moment, Jiang Hanqi felt both wronged and angry, secretly determined to teach her husband a lesson when he returned. Whoosh! Wife, you're awake? Just as Jiang Hanqi had made up her mind, Wang Feng appeared in the room and exclaimed happily. Chapter 512. In Wang Feng's arms, Jiang Hanqi had long lost her initial cold Empress demeanor. She even looked a bit pitiful. Husband, were you angry just now? Jiang Hanqi tightly hugged Wang Feng's waist, feeling his warm breath that made her feel secure, and whispered. Wang Feng was slightly stunned by Jiang Hanqi's words. After realizing it, he found that Jiang Hanqi was just too sensitive. This silly wife. Wang Feng looked down at Jiang Hanqi, who was constantly rubbing against him, and couldn't help but smile helplessly. Wife, first feel the baby inside you. Instead of answering Jiang Hanqi's question, Wang Feng asked her to observe the little baby in her belly. At this moment, Jiang Hanqi finally came back to her senses. No wonder she had been feeling something strange earlier, but couldn't pinpoint it. Jiang Hanqi's actions of rubbing against Wang Feng gradually came to a halt as her consciousness delved in her body to look at the strange feeling. When Jiang Hanqi saw clearly, she was momentarily stunned because there were actually two strands of Wang Feng's celestial power connecting to her body. Although those two strands of celestial power were separate, they made Jiang Hanqi feel as if both strands were identical. Chapter 513. No, we ask for comfort. Since we want comfort, it shouldn't be this ugly. Wang Feng looked at Su Chun, who was bruised and barely recognizable, and after thinking for a moment, placed his hand on him and performed healing magic. Su Chun lay on the ground, gasping for breath, his eyes hazy as he looked at his master, who had just beaten him and was now treating him. This master was definitely doing it on purpose. He just wanted to give him a beating. At this moment, Su Chun was filled with turmoil, constantly muttering bad things about Wang Feng in his heart. After a while, Wang Feng looked at Su Chun, whose long hair had already grown back, and the bruises on his face had also swollen down. However, his entire face was still covered in scars, and even the corners of his lips had blood scabs. Nice, this is the right taste, get up. Wang Feng gently helped Su Chun up, nodding at him, who was seriously injured but still retained his good looks. Master, you're so handsome. Su Chun wanted to curse Wang Feng a few times, but upon seeing Wang Feng slightly raise the hand that was supporting him, he quickly changed his tone. I know I'm very handsome, Sai. There is no need to keep emphasizing it. Just give me some compliments. Wang Feng raised his right hand to brush his hair off his forehead, smiling narcissistically. Chapter 514. She shouldn't directly come hit me, right? Su Chun sat in the center of the luxurious villa's courtyard, staring blankly at the sky that had just cleared of clouds, feeling terrified. Color sword. At the entrance of the villa, Han Miao shouted angrily again, seemingly wanting to see Su Chun panicking like usual. However, Han Miao was disappointed. Su Chun still sat there motionless, staring blankly into the distance, as if he had become foolish. Meanwhile, a little girl dressed in a white ice-colored dress beside Han Miao immediately transformed into an ice Qilin and rushed over as soon as she made eye contact with the little dragon in the courtyard. No matter what kind of creature it is, they have always been fond of the strong. Just like the ice Kirin at this moment. It enjoys being ridden by the smaller dragon and running around everywhere. Talp, talp, talp. Su Chun listened to the footsteps behind him getting closer, seemingly with anger as they stomped deliberately harder, making him feel extremely anxious. However, thinking of what his master had said, Su Chun forced himself to sit still and daydream instead of running away. Color sword. Han Miao stood behind Su Chun, a tuft of ice blue hair sticking up above her head, her hands on her slim waist as she shouted again. Chapter 515. Inside the luxurious villa at this moment, Wang Feng had just fed Jiang Hanqi some imported elixir and was cuddling on the big bed. Suddenly, a noise came from the yard. Wife. Jiang Hanqi's words were interrupted by the sound from the yard. She frowned slightly, raising her clear eyes to release her spiritual sense, and Wang Feng did the same. But when they saw the two figures flying and chasing each other, they exchanged a bewildered glance. Darling, wait here for a moment. I'll go see what's going on with those two. Why do they always end up fighting when they meet? Wang Feng said with a hint of exasperation, but still spoke gently to Jiang Hanqi. No, I won't go with you. Seeing this, Jiang Hanqi hurriedly grabbed Wang Feng's arm, slightly lowering her head and raising her pitiful eyes. That sad little look seemed to fear that Wang Feng would leave her alone here again. But your body, it doesn't matter. Jiang Hanqi interrupted Wang Feng, then shifted her body to tightly hug Wang Feng's waist, almost pressing herself against him. Chapter 516. A few days later. After observing Jiang Hanqi's injuries in the luxurious villa and finding that she had healed, Wang Feng nodded gently. After an unknown period, Jiang Hanqi, with a slightly flushed face, gently wrapped her arm around Wang Feng's as they slowly walked out of the room in the luxurious villa. Shirp, shirp. As soon as they opened the door and stepped out of the grand room, a series of noisy sounds filled the living room. Wang Feng felt the harmonious atmosphere and couldn't help but smile, preparing to greet them with a smile. But the next moment, when he saw the scene in the living room, you guys, Wang Feng looked at the messy living room and the TV flashing with black and purple lines. Nearly losing his temper, after just one night apart, these two little brats had turned the entire living room into this state. He even noticed a large bite mark on the corner of a luxurious mahogany chair. Looking down at the floor, he could see the remnants of something chewed into bits and spat out. The scraps on the ground seemed to say, this wood is not tasty at all. Chapter 517. Ow? Hadi felt the weight on his back and couldn't help but raise his wise eyes and let out a plaintive ow. However, after feeling the gentle touch of the two kids stroking its fur, Hadi stopped barking. Seeing that everything was ready, Wang Feng turned to look at the quiet community around him and suddenly realized they hadn't bought a car. The last time they came to the villa, it was because he had given too much, and the sales staff had personally driven them over. Mystical power, conceal. Wang Feng suddenly thought of the conceal ability. Just as the surrounding environment was sealed off, and he silently recited it in his heart. Once everyone entered the concealed space with a thought, Wang Feng took a few people and a dog and disappeared in an instant. A little while later, in the bustling streets of the city center, Wang Feng was leisurely strolling with Jiang Hanshi and the others. However, the attention of the people around them was constantly drawn to them, which left Wang Feng feeling a bit helpless. With the stunningly beautiful Jiang Hanshi and Han Miao, the adorable little girl with a tuft of hair, standing at 1.5 meters, not to mention the two kids riding a husky and laughing. And finally, there were Wang Feng and Su Chun, two handsome guys with ancient-style long hair. Chapter 518. On the street with exquisite red tiles. System, do you have any treasures that can reduce our presence? Wang Feng felt they were too eye-catching. They had only been out for a while and had already attracted countless gazes, like big stars. Ding hiss. The system didn't speak, but slowly emitted a long hiss. Dog system, just say it directly. How much are you going to deduct this time? Wang Feng understood immediately upon hearing this sound that the dog system was definitely going to deduct his source points. Ding, not much, just 100 million. I can use source power to create a presence-reducing halo for you. Ding, it's also active, can be used by multiple people, and the host can choose to turn it on or off through your mystical power panel. The system seemed to be worried that Wang Feng would feel that spending 100 million source points was a loss, so it made sure to note that it was active. Bye. I really can't stand this group of people. Wang Feng held Jiang Hanshi's hand and urged the system in his heart to quickly give them the halo. Ding, 100 million source points deducted. Presence-reducing halo has been issued. Turn it on, hurry up. Chapter 519. Huh? Oh, brother has good taste. This Iquan brand phone is the treasure of our store. We only have. The boss was momentarily stunned by Wang Feng's question, but quickly switched to sales mode. However, halfway through speaking, the boss suddenly paused, then looked at Wang Feng, Jiang Hanshi, and Su Chun. 1, 2, 3. Only 7 in total. After counting, the boss raised his hand to show Wang Feng a big 7, his face beaming with enthusiasm. Boss, do I look like a fool? Wang Feng widened his eyes, stretched his neck to lean in front of the male boss, looking as if he wanted to hit someone. A bit. The boss leaned back slightly, seemingly genuinely afraid that Wang Feng's crazy look would suddenly make him punch him. No, can you be a bit more serious? You counted kids, fine, but even the damn dog is included. That is a bit excessive. Wang Feng had noticed the boss's gaze when he counted them earlier, but he truly did not expect him to include Hadi. Oh, then fine, this treasure of the store, we only have 6. Chapter 520. Inside the amusement park. After buying the tickets, Wang Feng and Jiang Hanshi walked hand in hand in front of various entertainment attractions, watching the crowds coming and going or chasing each other. Meanwhile, Su Chun and Han Miao had already disappeared, and the little dragon and little Lin were taken away to play somewhere. As for whose idea this was, it was naturally Wang Feng's. After all, he still wanted to enjoy a world for two with Jiang Hanshi. Before they left, Wang Feng taught them how to pay with the Iquan phone and even helped set up an account. When Wang Feng turned on the phone earlier on the way, he discovered that the Iquan phone actually had signal without a card. However, he didn't know if all phones had this feature or if it was just the Iquan phone. Wang Feng strolled with Jiang Hanshi for a while, then his gaze slightly narrowed as he looked at the toy store ahead. Jiang Hanshi had never played with modern toys, so just tried to go in and see what they could buy. Come with me, my wife. Wang Feng held Jiang Hanshi's hand, who was looking around, and walked towards the pink toy store. As they passed by the stalls on both sides, there were quite a few small booths, but Wang Feng didn't pay them any mind. However, Jiang Hanshi was momentarily attracted by the toys at the small stalls on either side. At this moment, Wang Feng turned his head to look at Jiang Hanshi's profile, which was enhanced by the sunlight, giving it a mysterious, filter-like appearance. She was wearing a pair of cute cat ears on her head, sparkling in the sunlight. When Wang Feng saw that Jiang Hanshi was staring at the nearby carousel, a thought came to his mind. Wife, do you want to ride the carousel? Just as Jiang Hanshi was lost in thought about the baby in her belly, Wang Feng's voice slowly reached her from the side. Huh? Jiang Hanshi was momentarily taken aback by Wang Feng's voice, turning her pretty face with a puzzled huh? Come on. Follow me. Without waiting for Jiang Hanshi's puzzled expression, Wang Feng took her straight to the carousel. He didn't care about anything else and pulled the slightly frowning Jiang Hanshi all the way to the edge of the carousel's railing. There were only a few parents with children on the carousel, and many seats were still empty. Coincidentally, as Wang Feng and Jiang Hanshi approached, the carousel was just beginning to slow down. As the staff opened the railing, the parents started to bring their children down, preparing to leave for other attractions. Big brother. Big sister, you are really handsome and beautiful, and so cute. Can I take a picture with you? At that moment, a pretty girl ran up to Jiang Hanqi, excitedly holding a pink pig phone case and asking. Jiang Hanqi raised her small windmill, but didn't say anything, instead glancing at her husband, who was waving a toy sword beside her. All right, just let you take a precious photo. Wang Feng, feeling happy upon seeing the girl, thought for a moment and finally smiled and agreed. It wasn't that Wang Feng had any special feelings for her. He was just in a good mood and thought a photo wouldn't hurt. Of course, if it were a boy, he wouldn't have said anything, as most people generally have a better impression of girls. Thank you, thank you. The girl quickly thanked them twice and hurried to stand in the middle between Wang Feng and Jiang Hanqi. Huh? Jiang Hanqi couldn't help but frown slightly, noticing the girl standing particularly close to them. Go take a picture with my wife. I want to be with my wife. Seeing Jiang Hanqi's almost jealous expression, Wang Feng quickly asked the girl to move to her side. Suddenly, a figure covered in blood appeared, making loud sounds as it collided with the ground, slowly rolling to the front of Wang Feng and Jiang Hanqi. Such dedication, that must hurt a lot. Wang Feng looked at the bloodied ghost from the haunted house rolling in front of them and couldn't help but think. Jiang Hanqi, seeing the scene, instinctively hugged Wang Feng's arm tightly, leaning in close as if genuinely scared. Husband, looking at the blood-covered ghost slowly getting up, Jiang Hanqi called out to Wang Feng in a muffled voice. Wang Feng, feeling somewhat electrified by her soft call of husband, gradually snapped back to reality. Run. Once he came to his senses, Wang Feng scooped Jiang Hanqi into a princess carry and shouted as he jumped over the ghost's head and dashed out. Jiang Hanqi. Staff ghost. It was only after watching the two figures turn a corner and disappear that the staff ghost reacted. Oh. The dedicated ghost quickly let out a shrill scream and, covered in blood, suddenly stood up and rushed after Wang Feng and Jiang Hanqi. Looking at the documents and the little red marriage booklet in his hand, Wang Feng thought for a moment and suddenly remembered something he had forgotten. Wife. It seems we forgot about Xiao Long and Xiao Lin. Wang Feng looked at Jiang Hanqi, who was standing obediently beside him, and spoke about what he had recalled. Jiang Hanqi, feeling joyful, was taken aback for a moment upon hearing this. No wonder she felt something was missing since they left the amusement park. The two, already changed into normal clothes, stared blankly for a while before looking up at the setting sun. They should be able to go home by themselves, right? Should be, right? While Wang Feng and Jiang Hanqi were chatting, the Civil Affairs Bureau staff behind them had already begun packing up to leave for the day. This indicated that it was already quite late. Xiao Long, have you gone home? After exchanging glances, Wang Feng called out to Xiao Long in his mind. Dad, Daddy. Xiao Long seemed to be dazed for a moment after hearing Wang Feng's voice, but once he snapped back to reality, he shouted excitedly. All right, looks like they haven't returned to the villa. Wang Feng began using his abilities to head back to the amusement park with Jiang Hanqi, while sensing Xiao Long's location again. Han Miao twitched slightly. Even the tuft of hair on her head stood up straight. I'll protect you. At that moment, a gentle voice slowly sounded, and Han Miao looked at Su Chun, who was holding her hand, slightly stunned. The tuft of hair on her head gradually returned to normal, even swaying gently in the wind as if shy. Okay, fine, I'll allow you to touch me once. Han Miao's face turned slightly red, and her voice became a bit stammering, but she still looked extremely proud. Looking at Su Chun, who was leading her out of the crowd and blocking in front of her, Han Miao seemed to be a little distracted. Once they exited the food street, Su Chun, holding Han Miao's small hand, seemed reluctant to let go. Han Miao seemed to notice this too, but she lowered her head, looking at the ground as if unaware. The two figures, one tall and one small, walked hand in hand along the street, each harboring their own thoughts. Because they had been scolded for walking in the middle of the road during the day, the two of them knew they had to walk on the street now. Both of them had a slight blush on their faces, holding hands and slowly walking step by step, each lost in their own thoughts. Chapter 526, the next noon. A series of large trucks drove into the community where Wang Feng lived, attracting several curious gazes. Where's Su Chun and Han Miao? Wang Feng, snuggling closely with Jiang Hanqi in the blanket, couldn't help but murmur in confusion as he looked down at her. Maybe they haven't had enough fun yet? Jiang Hanqi wrapped her arms around Wang Feng's waist and hesitantly replied, slightly raising her eyes and furrowing her brows. The master and the sword cannot share visual perspectives. Su Chun and Han Miao, staying in the storage space and the divine sea space, cannot see the outside. However, due to Wang Feng and Jiang Hanqi's cultivation levels, he could forcibly locate Su Chun and Han Miao. After all, with Jiang Hanqi's imperial strength, she could scan most of the universe. But they didn't do that. After all, they were both sentient beings, and peeking would be a bit inappropriate. Forget it. Let's go check out those clothes. Hearing the roaring sound of large trucks in the villa community, along with the phone call just received, Wang Feng knew that the clothes had arrived. Jiang Hanqi secretly pouted, feeling a bit unhappy. Why did they have to come when she was hugging her husband? Chapter 527. I didn't mean to. I don't even know how I ended up hugging you. Su Chun, sitting on the ground, looked at the blushing and angry Han Miao, thinking she was upset, and suddenly felt like he might cry. He had finally built a good relationship with Han Miao, and he was genuinely afraid it would shatter at this moment. Oof, you can't touch me again. Han Miao angrily crossed her arms and huffed, turning around and preparing to walk down the mountain. However, her anger this time didn't cause the tuft of hair on her head to stand up. Clearly, Su Chun didn't notice this important detail. Su Chun, sitting on the grass under the shade of a tree, looked at the angrily departing Han Miao, feeling at a loss. He wanted to call out to her to wait, but he was afraid that if he shouted, Han Miao would come back and beat him up. After all, he had deeply ingrained in his heart that Han Miao would hit him when she got angry. Where are you going? Can I go with you? Finally, Su Chun couldn't help but shout, feeling the pressure of possibly getting hit. Chapter 528. Husband, turn around. Jiang Hanqi saw that she was about to change clothes, and Wang Feng was staring at her, making her feel a bit shy as she softly said, no. Wang Feng, hearing Jiang Hanqi's words, showed no embarrassment at all. Instead, he slightly smiled and directly refused. You watching me change makes me a bit uncomfortable. Seeing her husband like this, Jiang Hanqi understood his determination, and after a shy response, she turned around and prepared to walk toward the bathroom. Wait a minute. Wang Feng hurriedly stepped in front of Jiang Hanqi, blocking her with his hand, then slowly raised his beautiful eyes. Jiang Hanqi furrowed her brows slightly, her eyes filled with confusion. Wife. Wang Feng's serious tone suddenly changed as he gently grasped Jiang Hanqi's delicate arm and whispered his request. Jiang Hanqi, holding the clothes, froze for a moment, standing there as if her brain had crashed. However, when she reacted, she felt a bit shy and comforted by Wang Feng's scene. It had been a long time since Jiang Hanqi had seen Wang Feng like this. It only happened when her realm was stronger than his in the past. Chapter 529. Wang Feng slightly frowned, looking at Jiang Hanqi, whose expression seemed very off, and for a moment, he was at a loss. Wang Feng didn't think in that direction because Jiang Hanqi had always avoided such matters. How could she take the initiative? Are you sure you just want to go out for a stroll? But to confirm, Wang Feng tilted his head slightly and asked Jiang Hanqi. Jiang Hanqi's face turned red as she bit her lip, finally giving a muffled wait a moment before going out. Let me see you first. Wang Feng looked at Jiang Hanqi's flushed cheeks and didn't suspect anything. All right, you pick an outfit, and I'll take you out for a stroll. Wang Feng didn't insist, knowing his silly wife's personality. Then, Wang Feng took out all the more normal clothes, and hundreds or thousands of pieces of clothing instantly filled an entire room. Jiang Hanqi raised her eyes to look and finally walked among the piles of clothes, slowly approaching a white and blue dress. This dress resembled the white dress she usually wore, but it had a more modern feel. The shoulders were designed with straps, and the waist had a slight tightening effect, accentuating her figure. Chapter 530. All right, so you two are holding hands so quickly, huh? Wang Feng looked at the blushing Han Miao, who was avoiding eye contact, and Su Chun, who was standing at the villa's entrance with a big smile, and he couldn't help but laugh. Jiang Hanqi furrowed her brows slightly upon seeing this. Based on her experiences with her husband, Su Chun and Han Miao must have had some intimate interaction earlier. Otherwise, Han Miao wouldn't look so embarrassed. However, Jiang Hanqi didn't say anything since Han Miao hadn't mentioned anything herself. Back already? Come on in and sit. My wife and I just went out for a stroll. What you two want to do inside is up to you. Wang Feng greeted them first, then quickly wrapped his arm around Jiang Hanqi's soft waist while inviting the two into the villa. The tuft of hair on Han Miao's head swayed quickly, and then, ignoring the gazes of the three, she blushed and ran into the house. Oh, still shy? As Han Miao ran past Wang Feng and Jiang Hanqi, Wang Feng couldn't help but tease her about her embarrassed look. Just when Wang Feng thought Han Miao would ignore him and run straight past, she unexpectedly stopped and glared at him. Chapter 531. Oh no. The 8 of them had the same thought in their hearts, realizing they couldn't escape. They instantly summoned their respective life weapons into their hands. In an instant, powerful imperial energy swept through the entire villa community, but it was affected by a strong force, causing no harm to anything. Hey! At this moment, Wang Feng had transformed from hugging Jiang Hanqi to holding her hand, suddenly jumping out with her, startlingly shouting, "Hey, damn, this young man!" Jian Xinyu was so frightened that he took a big step back, nearly losing his balance and falling to the ground, shouting in fear. However, he managed to stabilize himself with imperial energy in the end. Otherwise, as a great emperor, being scared enough to fall down would definitely become a joke throughout the universe, leaving him unable to face anyone. Damn, this old man. At this moment, Wang Feng was extremely happy, unable to help but smile and respond to Jian Xinyu. Senior, we did not mean to offend, as we are the owners of those villas. So this trip is just to take a look at the formation set up by such a handsome and dashing senior. Absolutely no malice intended. At this time, the elderly Zhun Yin Yang stepped forward, hurriedly lowering his posture, sheathing his weapon, and bowing slightly as he spoke. Chapter 532. When Wang Feng returned to the villa with the dejected Jiang Hanqi, Xiao Long and Xiao Lin had already woken up. Daddy, Mommy. As soon as Wang Feng and Jiang Hanqi entered the villa courtyard, 2 childish voices called out in unison. If Xiao Long had a few words he could say clearly, it would be Daddy, Mommy, and Sister. Jiang Hanqi was momentarily stunned upon hearing the voices, and before she could react, Xiao Long and Xiao Lin each hugged her legs. Hey, why aren't you hugging Daddy? Wang Feng looked at the 2 porcelain doll-like little ones tightly hugging Jiang Hanqi's legs and couldn't help but shout out, Daddy's stinky. Stinky, stinky. Xiao Long looked up, pouting his cute little face and pretending to be a bit displeased as he spoke. Such a cute Xiao Long made Wang Feng laugh. Is the little rascal feeling mischievous? Then Daddy will let you have a good smell. I definitely smell better than your mommy. Wang Feng reached out and patted Xiao Long's little head, then playfully released Jiang Hanqi's hand and reached out to hug Xiao Long, whom seeing this. Xiao Long hurriedly hugged Jiang Hanqi, looking pitifully at her, wanting to seek mommy's protection. Chapter 533. Don't call me senior anymore. I prefer you to call me Xiao Wang. After laughing a few times, Wang Feng looked at Jian Xinyu, feeling inexplicably a bit melancholic. He truly did not like being called senior. You actually have a previous life. Back then, you call me Xiao Wang. Wang Feng waved his hand upon seeing Jian Xinyu's hesitant expression, speaking with a hint of sorrow. Tea or wine? Wang Feng ignored the confused Jian Xinyu and picked up 2 items from the table to hand them to Jian Xinyu. In the past, I snatched your tea and wine. Now it's your turn to drink mine. Wang Feng slightly raised his head as he spoke and suddenly popped the wine cover open, slamming it down in front of Jian Xinyu. Jian Xinyu hesitated for a moment, then took out 2 ancient-looking wine bottles from his divine sea space and placed them on the table. Come, pour it here. I accidentally discovered that pouring wine into this container makes it taste exceptionally good, Jian Xinyu said while holding the 2 wine bottles, treating them as if they were his treasures, handling them with extreme care. Isn't this what we had left over from before? Old Lin, where did you get these from? Wang Feng stared blankly at the 2 strangely familiar wine bottles, then began to prepare to pour the wine, smiling as he spoke. Chapter 530. For the vast world. The baby world. The baby world primarily focuses on childbirth and raising infants, and the cultivation methods practiced here are all aimed at better protecting infants. At this moment, Lung Mingyue and her group were anxiously waiting under a colossal, seemingly endless tree of life. In front of the tree of life was a tightly closed door, and at that moment, Wang Feng and Jiang Hanqi were inside. Husband, Jiang Hanqi, looking somewhat pale and haggard, fearfully and weakly called out to Wang Feng, who was tightly holding her hand. At this moment, Jiang Hanqi's cultivation had already surpassed the immortal emperor realm, but she still appeared so fragile when it came to childbirth. Because of the limits of the parents, it also determines the limits and strength of the child. So, at this moment, no matter how strong a person is, having a child is essentially not much different from an ordinary person. I'm here. It's okay. Don't be afraid. Wang Feng held Jiang Hanqi's slightly cool hand tightly, continuously speaking comforting words to her. Don't worry, with the #1 midwife in the baby world here, no matter how big or small. I guarantee everything will be fine. I once vowed that if there was even the slightest mistake in childbirth, I would directly take my own life on the spot. Chapter 535, however, what left Wang Feng a bit speechless was that Jiang Hanshi actually gave birth to a pair of twin daughters. It's not that having daughters is bad, but he already had 2 daughters, and now there were 2 more little cotton-padded jackets. This was the reason Wang Feng found it a bit amusing, but he was still very happy and delighted inside. During Jiang Hanshi's pregnancy, Wang Feng had studied knowledge about infants, as well as many aspects of fetal care. When he learned that this pair of daughters were twins, Wang Feng was also a bit confused, because twins are supposed to split from one strand of immortal power into 2 strands. That is the true definition of twins. But he first introduced one strand of immortal power, and then another strand. How did these twins form? When in doubt, consult the system. Ding. The heart frog is constantly touching your belly. Ding. Then there is only one possibility. The 2 strands of immortal power inside Jiang Hanshi sense the same origin and then fuse together. Ding. However, because of the difference between the first and second arrival, they couldn't fully merge, so another strand split off again. Ding. In other words, one strand merged into one, and then from one strand split into 2, resulting in a pair of twins. Chapter 536. After a while, Wang Feng finally released Jiang Hanshi after kissing her enough, then lowered his gaze slightly to meet hers. No more biting your lip. Otherwise, every time you bite, I'll kiss you once. Wang Feng gently pinched Jiang Hanshi's beautiful nose, his voice soft, without a hint of reproach. At this moment, Jiang Hanshi felt a bit soft, her eyes slightly misty as she gazed at Wang Feng after being kissed tenderly. Upon hearing her husband's words, Jiang Hanshi slightly lowered her head, and when she lifted it again, she was already gently biting her lower lip. Wang Feng was taken aback. Why was this silly wife not playing by the rules? Shouldn't she be nodding gently like before? Jiang Hanshi gently bit her rosy lower lip, combined with her soft demeanor, made Wang Feng feel a tickle in his heart. If it weren't for considering Jiang Hanshi's current physical condition, after giving birth, Jiang Hanshi's injuries seemed to be similar to those after such an act, and could not be healed with healing techniques. Not listening to your husband, you should be punished. Wang Feng understood her meaning and pressed his lips against hers again. After a long while, Wang Feng finally released her. After resting, he reached out to gently brush aside Jiang Hanshi's hair from her forehead, tenderly caressing her head. Chapter 537. Outside the Tree of Life. How is it? How is it? Han Miao and the others eagerly crowded in front of Wang Feng, their faces showing some urgency as they asked. Mother and daughters are all safe, don't worry. Wang Feng looked at Leng Shatsi and the others with a smile, feeling very pleased. That's good. Han Miao heard this and finally felt the tension in her heart slowly easing. The hair that had been standing upright on her head returned to normal. Mother and daughter trio? Did you have 2 little cotton-padded jackets? Leng Ningyue was momentarily taken aback by Wang Feng's mention of the mother-daughter trio, and after a moment, she blinked a couple of times. Yes, both daughters are very cute. Wang Feng smiled, and just thinking about Jiang Hanshi and her 2 daughters made him feel very happy. Yellow, dang firin'? At this moment, Leng Ningyue pondered for a moment and slowly uttered the 4-character mantra. The people present were momentarily confused, not quite understanding what the 4-character mantra meant. Wang Feng was the first to react, realizing that this was just the most popular saying among netizens. What the hell, Yellow?